Gain valuable experience, improve your employability, boost your resume, and kickstart your career while working from home, campus, or even a coffee shop from as little as 10 hours per week. Our program provides you with an amazing personalized internship experience that can be completed alongside your studies or other commitments. We match your skills and development goals to enriching roles within one of our established host companies in your sector of interest. Our experienced mentors support you with one-on-one mentoring and training throughout your internship experience. We provide references and in-depth feedback from your internship experience once you have finished to make your resume shine. Why virtual? A flexible, cost-effective internship and development program without the travel and living costs. Gain real-world work experience from the comfort of your own home, all covered by our low program fee. We can even help you find an internship at a company anywhere in the world. Our program has already helped many others boost their employability, so apply now.
Hi there, I'm Ed Holroyd Pearce from Virtual Internships, and we provide a remote work experience program for students all around the world with companies all around the world.
I like it because you just let's just get to the point. This is exactly what we do. We're going to make it really, really simple, and I love it. But as I always talk to every single, all right, wait, I'm so sorry. Let's pull back. Hi, Edward, how are you?
Hi, Jodi. Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Before I talk to anyone about their companies, and I think I spend a lot of time with my clients saying, your company is your company. It could be your company right now. It could be your company forever. It could be a company for short term, but you are you forever. So I want people to get to know who you are. Like, where are you? You have a lovely, beautiful accent. I want to know where you're from.
Thank you very much. I am sitting here in central London, in Waterloo, and I am from the UK. I've spent a little bit of my life living elsewhere in the world, spent a year living in West Coast US, and some time in Asia as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you went really fast and you kind of just like told me where you moved. Let's talk about who you are, because I mean, as a business person, like people just assume like, I mean, I'm just going to like literally call my mom out. My mom just assumes that whenever there's an entrepreneur, an innovator, a small business, they're like, well, yeah, they just like did it. And I'm like, no, there's a little bit more to than just did it. So
sure.
And we're like, let's just walk us through the path of your family, your area, like how you grew up. Did you play? Just like, I want to know more. I just want to know more.
All right, cool. So I was born in London, and when I was 7, my dad passed away, and my mum found it a little tough, I guess, and moved the family to rural Oxfordshire. And then fast forward a few years, I think I had quite an independent upbringing from that stage on. If you'll allow me one little story, my mum took us on a family holiday to Greece when I was like 8 years old, and we made friends with a Greek family after my sister almost fell out of the fire escape on a bus, and she kept in touch with this family. And then like a year later, I went on my own to stay with them for 3 weeks in northern Greece, and I was like 9. And it's really only in the last few years when I've told that story, I'm like, that was kind of weird. Like that was my mum doing something quite different.
All right, so I just have to ask about that. So it's so funny that you say that, because Anderson Cooper is known for newscaster Anderson Cooper.
Yep.
And Gloria Vanderbilt, mother. Like a lot of people didn't even realize that Gloria Vanderbilt was his mother until she died. And when her husband died and then her son committed suicide, he was 16 years old, and he's like, "Can I go to Sarajevo?" And she's like, "Okay." And everyone's like, "What are you doing? Like, what do you mean you're sending your 16-year-old? Like, he wants to be a news person, and you know what? I lost my husband, I lost my son. I don't want to lose him, so I'm giving him this opportunity." And so to hear that your parent, I mean, your mother just said, like, what was that decision? And how did you just hop on a plane, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I only had a couple of instances where I realized it was different, and I was flying unaccompanied minor, and when I got back to Heathrow Airport, you know, the lady kind of in charge of me said, "Well, who's picking you up?" And I said, I'm taking the airport bus back to Oxford. She was like, okay, let me just call your mom. And I was like, okay, now I realize that was not normal, but I'm so grateful because it has made me, have that different independent viewpoint. And I guess where I'm going with this is subsequently I decided to study Chinese at university. Again, it was
the easiest language in the world.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we started off with like 15 people and ended up with 6. So there were some dropouts. No one actually died, but it was pretty tough. So yeah, did Chinese at university, and I'll be really honest with your audience. I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do career-wise, and I think, for young people who don't know quite what they want to do, don't panic. What I did, I signed up for a part-time master's course in the evenings, and then I picked up a day job. And my first day job was in the London office. I was a marketing assistant for a Chinese airline.
It's handy, so yay. So that's a good thing. You didn't just learn it just for the fun of it. You actually put it to use.
Yes, and that was quite good because, technically I was marketing assistant, but the reality was I was like number 3 on the call line, on the hotline, and, whole load of amazing experiences that I mustn't go into detail on this public forum, but I will share with you at some point, over dinner or a glass of wine. But it was a great introduction to the world of work at all, but also to China and to state-owned enterprises, but also to living and working in London. So I feel like I started to get the best of both worlds at that point. And then I did a year in finance, which was a little more serious, certainly paid better, and gave me some good like financial analysis skills just to get started with. So that was my first couple of jobs. And then, I was lucky enough to basically have a conversation with my co-founder, Daniel, who suggested we set something up. And that 2006 was when we did it.
Okay. We're not going to the job yet. So I always find it where there's so many people that I talk to that choose to go into, they're in the marketing. I've spoken to a lot of people that are in the marketing realm, and they choose to go into finance. It's a dramatic different world. It's a dramatic different thought process. When you're a marketing person, you think everything you do after that is like, you think in a visual, you think about the education and the focus on the target audience of like, how do we tell the storytelling. Not that the numbers do not tell a story, but why did you, you could have gone in any different direction. Why would you choose finance?
So again, you're very perceptive to ask that, and there was a link, and the link was Chinese. This asset manager had a couple of small portfolios that were focused on Asia. And initially, when I went for the interview, it was really about looking at Chinese companies they were looking at investing in. The reality was that 95% of their assets under management were all in very large global oil and gas companies. And I actually didn't really use my Chinese that much, but it did get me into that mindset. I'd gone from, I'm going to use my language skills and a bit of my cultural awareness into even with those skills, I still need to drill down to what is this company? What are the financials? Is it something that I can bring to our weekly meetings and suggest that we invest into? So it was a good transition, actually. And at the same time, I was doing this part-time master's degree, which was helping me understand the cultural pieces, but also get a bit more financial and able to roll my sleeves up with the figures. So
how were you perceived as, you are you're from the UK and you are fluent, you're fluent in Chinese. How are you perceived by the Chinese people? Where are you that I go, who's this guy coming in here, and are we engaged with them? Or were they just impressed where, thank goodness someone is taking the time to speak to us in our language, so that way it's a better conversation, it's a more fruitful conversation?
Yeah, great question. I think as a whole, I would say Asian languages are pretty high reward. And by that, I mean, you can speak pretty much fluent French, and if you get one wrong word, somebody is probably going to spit in your...
chastise you. Oh, yeah.
Right? They kind of just talk to me in English, etc. But in Asia, you can say like 2 words and people are all over it with praise and with, you know, oh, that's so great. You know, you like speak such good Chinese. I'm like, I really only just said hello. And so I think that helps. You know, it's actually enabled me to start off conversations a lot more in a more sort of relaxed way, because people are like, oh, that's interesting, you speak Chinese, huh? But I do think there's still, you know, big underlying cultural divides that make it a bit tougher. So actually with, you know, Anglo languages, Western European type languages, even Latin American, there's a kind of underlying ease of communication. You know, I've been to Brazil and I've drunk caipirinhas out of a plastic cup and had, you know, a like pretty fun night chatting to, you know, dustbin collectors who really didn't speak that much English. And that was really fun. And that kind of stuff can happen in China, but maybe it doesn't as much because there's just that, you know, you're different from me culturally. So I'm probably on a different kind of, you know, experience. I haven't explained it very well, but I hope it.
So you know what, you haven't explained it, but I understand it. So when I was in China, so during my MBA, I was very lucky to go to 14 countries in 1 year for my thesis, which was it was insane. It was the most epically insane year of my life. But it was really interesting because being in China, I mean, I stand out. Like, I mean, I clearly stand out, and everyone's like, oh my God. And it was like, literally, I was there 2 weeks before the Olympics. So they were just getting ready. We're in Beijing, and they were not ready. It was just crazy. But I was just like, oh my God, like who is this person? Can I sit there and talk to you? Can I touch you? Can I take pictures with you? But it was true where I am a runner and I like to understand my community. I usually go running in the morning, and in Beijing, they're very into the healthcare, like et cetera. But at nighttime, people are just in their own little ecosystems. And I would go down alleys and I would see the back of the end of the restaurant and people were eating chicken feet. And I'm like, no, I can't communicate with you. I'm like, I'll try. And they're looking at me like, do you really want to try that? I'm like, well, we're having a moment. Let's have a moment. But it was very clear where, okay, now we've had the moment. Bye. Because I couldn't, the communication was not there. But it is very, very clear, like, here we are. I want to engage. I want to embrace. I want to get to know you, but underneath my terms.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair. Sounds like a great trip, though. And I totally feel you for that. You know, just go around, just get involved, try things. It's really cool.
Well, I think that everyone, so I mean, I'm very lucky that I travel I travel a lot. And I travel to random places. Like, I mean, I was in Bulgaria last year and everyone's like, Bulgaria, I had a speaking engagement in Bulgaria, but in my mind, was it on my bucket list? No, like not even a thought in my mind, but just to be able to be there, I had to understand, yes, I understand you're in the Balkans, but I need to understand the community. I need to understand the people. And going for those morning runs, you get to see the location before the world wakes up, but you get to see the small business owners and you get to see who's up and who's engaging. And so it's one of my favorite things to do. And everyone's like, I don't think that's safe that you should do that. I'm like, I'm pretty safe on when I do it. I definitely, like, I'm aware. And there's like areas that I just don't do it. But I mean, it's a really great understanding of our community and what people are going through at the time. But so
that's really cool.
We're gonna have that in common in regards of like, we just randomly just pick a place and go. So you've had all these experiences and you've had a few careers. You've been adventurous from the start, which is fantastic. It was injected into your life. Was there any time in the career switches and just even traveling and just communicating with people that the fear level is like, where? I mean, I'm not gonna ever use the imposter syndrome. I hate that so much. I think it's the silliest thing that people are using, the imposter syndrome. But were you ever concerned where, how do I find my place in all the different places I'm going, like whether it's marketing, whether it's financing, whether it's like with the Chinese people, like how did you start creating that I belong here, I'm creating my space, I'm creating a legacy, I'm leaving something behind?
Yeah, so I think probably that was the next part of my story, really, which is when me and my co-founder set up our first company, which was called CRCC Asia, and actually pulled together all of those elements you just mentioned. It was basically finding our place and what our value proposition to society was. And at that time, Daniel had spent a year in China, and he hadn't studied Chinese formally, but I'd studied Chinese formally. And we just decided, it was also like around the financial crisis. China was doing a lot of exciting things in a lot of different industries, and it was hitting the headlines, but no one was really able to access it. Like young people, as far as I'm, concerned, they were only really able to go to China to either go backpacking or to teach English. And we felt that was a real mismatch. Loads of exciting industries doing exciting things, loads of young people who wanted some experience and to be global and to be, the next generation doing exciting things. And we actually had all the important pieces of that puzzle. So we created internship programs in Asia for students, either university age or recent graduates. And we've, developed that a little bit, but we're broadly still in that space. And it's about trying to help young people connect with different careers, different job opportunities. And at that time, it was all about going to Asia and being on the ground and absorbing it. And then since 2018, which is when Virtual Internships was founded, it's been about getting people convinced of the value of remote work.
Were you ever an intern?
Yeah, I was actually a couple of times. Yeah.
Because most people are fearful. Especially since Black Swan. For anyone that's out there that doesn't know, Black Swan movie that literally overused their interns, and the interns sued. And so from that point on, companies are just afraid of even hiring an intern. And it breaks my heart, because I would not be where I am without internship. I was in the media. The only way that you can get a job in the media was if someone died, and if the person died, you had to be inside. It was so hard to get into that. I worked for the #1 radio station in Boston. There's no way I would have gotten there if it wasn't for an internship. And then from that internship, my boss was fired and I got the job as producer of the show. And so it is one of those moments, someone gets fired or someone dies to get that key job in the media. And even now, getting in the media is harder. Getting into a company is harder. So you have the PwCs, the Bains, they have those internships. But I hear from students all the time, I can't find one. I don't have the experience to get the internship, and yet I need the internship to get the experience. So why did you decide that it was time for converting what you created for the kids in China to now creating virtual internships for a global platform?
So there were two main drivers. Number one was, having done that in-person programming, we saw the barriers. And even though we were trying to always break down the barriers, they still existed. And they were either, the cost of the program, like actually going abroad, accommodation, etc., all quite costly, or it was like a logistical thing. So people have family commitments. They might have parents that don't support them going abroad for the summer. They might need to have a part-time job. They might have studies, etc. So a virtual internship removed a lot of those barriers for people. And then the other key driver was the growing popularity of remote work. And obviously, I'm going to have to take you and the audience back a couple of years to before remote work was really, really embedded. But even in 2018, it was still starting to be more widespread, and people were realizing that you could do quite a few different job roles remotely. And my take on this is that it used to be very much reserved for senior people within an organization. It was like once you're at a managerial level, yeah, you can take Thursdays work from home, so you're home for your deliveries or your laundry or whatever, right? And that's not really fair to graduates. Yes, they probably do need as much contact as possible. They should try and be in touch with their coworkers. But to say that they are excluded from remote work just because of their junior position in the hierarchy, I don't think is really correct. So we were saying, learn about remote work, have some remote experience so that you can have that conversation in your first job or in your first position. Say, look, I've proven this. I've done an internship. I can work remotely. Take me on, at least partially remotely, and you will not be disappointed. So giving people the ability to have that conversation, and really that means giving them the underlying skills. So improving their communication skills, their professionalism, their organization, and their ability to navigate all the digital technology as well. So that was kind of the two main drivers and where we got to where we are.
So now you have that, you're getting these students, and where are these students coming from?
So for legacy reasons, we have a lot of strong university partnerships in the US, in the UK, and some in Australia and New Zealand. But we're actually super pleased with the way the virtual internships program has been taken up elsewhere. We've just got a partnership with a network of universities in Africa, several different countries. And, that again, for me, is really so exciting because it's showing that people who otherwise would not be able to access an internship in London or Shanghai or New York can do so with, a laptop or a phone. And that really could change the course of their, their career big time. Right.
So as I mentioned before, I mean, I am a huge advocate for interns. Even before I was an intern myself, I was a CIT director, so a counselor and training director at a summer camp. And so that whole entire concept of training someone to get into that counselor role, training someone to have that position of their dream is so important, because it's the value of the experience is like no other. You can't learn this in a classroom. I took media classes, communications classes, but until I was in the media, dramatically different. I took poli-sci classes all the time, and then until I was Governor Romney's press secretary, dramatically different. And so that hands-on experience where you get to make that mistake. And I always tell people, like, if you're going to buy a car, you usually rent the car or test drive the car before you purchase it. Why would you not do that for a job? And you be in that position, you're thinking, oh, like I took this internship and this is like what I thought I wanted, and it comes to be where it's not anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're getting these students. So do they, well, one, are they paid, unpaid? And also, so this is a double question. Also, you're training these students for all these skill sets, but what about those companies? I mean, I talked about how companies are afraid of interns. How are you preparing these companies to succeed as well?
Yeah, sure. So on the paid internship debate, it's obviously super sensitive. We encourage all of our companies to pay or consider paying their interns. I think in the current environment, we wouldn't want a company to not offer internships purely because of financial restrictions. And likewise, if a student can consider it, and given that these internships could be part-time alongside other jobs, and there aren't any transportation costs or relocation costs, we could still see the justification for a short-term unpaid internship if necessary. So I can't tell you that all of our internships are paid, unfortunately, but we'd like to work towards that for sure. And then, onto the second piece, which is the kind of the structuring of the program. On the student side, we've spent quite a lot of time building an online curriculum. So it follows the NACE core competencies. It's basically 8 competencies, the ones you'd expect. And it helps students with their self-awareness about those skills and then the ability to articulate them better. And we actually mirror that for the host companies as well. So they understand that students are coming in probably pretty fresh. This may be their first ever exposure to the industry and exposure to a company. But by focusing on those 8 skills, they can, think about how they structure the tasks for the interns. We're also building out our host company portal where the companies can sign in and check out what a strong remote job description looks like, recommendations that it should be project-based and how many times they might want to check in with the intern per week, that sort of thing. So we're trying to help, but it's very industry agnostic. So we help 18 different career fields. So we have to try and kind of blend that, broad advice versus anything specific.
It's interesting that you are talking about the curriculum part of it, because your competition is the Chegg. So this Chegg.com is one of your competitors. You have in Massachusetts alone, over 215 universities, colleges, and trade schools. So that's your competition. The companies are creating their own internship programs. So why would someone want to come towards you? Why would someone want to recommend you? Why would a parent say, this is where you're going to go?
Yeah, sure. So we basically guarantee an internship. So if a student is accepted onto our program, we will move heaven and earth to get them something which they like. And they don't have to accept the first one we put in front of them. So I think that's one element. You know, we're not just saying, hey, here's a job board, go and try and find your internship. And as you rightly identified, you know, students find it tough to find one. So we're going out and scouring the world and our own networks to find great host organizations. And then we're also vetting them so that they are providing great experiences. There are definitely more SMEs, you know, small and medium-sized businesses and entrepreneurial opportunities within our network. So again, you know, people will probably go to the PwC themselves directly and try and get in. Good luck, I hope they get it. That's a sort of different experience. We're saying hands-on, you've got your own supervisor who's really going to give you some nice individualized tidbits about the industry. And I think that's quite exciting because you don't really get that as a regular intern as part of a huge program. So yeah, so that's kind of one of the main values. And then within our program, you also get a dedicated program experience manager who will help you unpack some of those experiences. So if you're finding you're getting too much work or too little work, or you're not sure of the value you're getting out of certain tasks, one of my colleagues will be speaking to that candidate, that intern, and saying, hey, have you thought about it from this angle? Have you thought about it from this angle? And, you know, God forbid there is a problem, we're here to sort it out. We can speak to the company, you know, without the sensitivities of, oh, you know, it took me ages to apply to this internship, and if I say no or walk away, I have nothing to do this summer. We can sort out that problem and either make sure that internship is great, or day two, we can put them into a different organization. So those are the kind of things where I would see the value.
What is the age that so are you taking on high school, college, private school? Because there's so many different agencies that during the summer, so during the summer I have 15 interns. During the season I have 6 during the spring and the fall. I'm asked often, because I've been doing this for so many years, there's programs for high school students that they are able to leave their location or their country for a month. Northeastern usually houses them here in Boston, and they're here for a month, and they're working 40 hours as a high school student just to walk into a college with experience. So what are the ages what are the criteria of the individuals that you're going after, and how are you finding them?
Yeah, sure. So our regular program, our most standard offering is for university age, so 18 plus, but first, second, third year, all able to apply and participate, and indeed recent graduates as well. We have a couple of programs that are run by corporates for recent graduates, etc. We have piloted a couple of high school age, and yeah, you know, it's more of a combined program with some hands-on experience, some real projects, but also more on the unpacking things and classroom learning. It's more of a transition. So we will be running a couple more of those high school programs in the summer, but they're not our main program. So it's mostly university. And yeah, we have tailor-made partnerships with different schools around the world who will say to us, you know, we've got these 50 students in engineering who need to have this experience, or we have, you know, 25 language students who would like to gain this exposure. So it's mostly direct with universities, but the program is open to individual candidates as well.
Wonderful. It's funny that you just said that in regards of you're unpackaging all these different things, that these criteria of what they're needing to learn. One of the things I hear so often is when I'm doing speeches for universities is that we need help with the soft skills. They're so focused on getting that grade. They're so focused on achieving and getting that great job. Then they go in and the soft skills are just erased, or they never had them whatsoever. So do you help them with that area as well?
Yeah, we absolutely do, of course. And you knew I was going to say that, I'm sure. But yeah, I think most of our focus is on imagining them in a job interview post-internship, you know, a job interview or a job application process. What can they get from this internship experience that they can take away and will form tangible benefits to their next role? And so much of it is the soft skills, and it's communication skills, but it's about actually, I think, storytelling or exposure to different experiences and being able to say, yeah, I was given this task and it was outside my comfort zone and this is how I handled it. And I am a mature person who can deal with this kind of stuff. Feel free to throw things my way. I'm a performer. You know, just those kind of, and being able to add some real detail to that, I think is so important.
I mean, I love that what you're doing is needed 120,000%, because when I'm doing an interview for you to be an intern for my program, I ask the basics. I'm like, I go, tell me about whether it was in school or an organization, a church or sports. It doesn't matter. Just tell me an experience where you were leading a force or you were part of a force, and what did you leave behind? And please do not tell me you got someone's gas, you were filing, or you were cleaning the refrigerator, which I've witnessed all those things as an intern, as well as someone that I walked into a company. I'm like, what is this person doing? Like, what's happening here? And they're, that's my intern. I'm like, well, why is your intern cleaning your refrigerator? That's not their job. And how do you put it on an application?
Yeah, I mean, when I see a resume or a CV, I actually love it if someone has had, you know, what I would call a very basic customer experience, customer service type job. You know, if I see McDonald's on a CV, I get over the moon, as long as they can articulate it right.
Yes, yes.
They tell me I refilled the straw dispenser 5 times a day, then it's like, oh, you've lost me now. If they can say, you know, I built my resilience in a very fast-paced working environment, or I was trusted with cash and credit card transactions, you know, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can just pull out loads of really good life skills. But if the person isn't aware and they, in some ways, kind of think lowly of that position, you know, I've had people say, shall I just remove this from my resume because no one really wants to know that I was a server in my local restaurant. I'm like, well, if you can't think of anything really positive that to add to your next role, then fine, you're going to have to remove it. But I strongly suggest you unpack some of your previous roles and try and find the, you know, the underlying value that people want out of it. And it's really exciting when you see people making that link in their minds and coming back to either a resume or a mock answer in an interview practice question. Say,
I'm not gonna lie to you, that McDonald's question would have been really easy for me, because the first thing I would have said was like, I worked at McDonald's. I was literally at the front and I was like really engaged. I go, but I have a passion for marketing. And so I've been lucky to travel to different countries. And whenever I go to a different country, I automatically go to McDonald's. And do you know the difference in regards to the marketing here? I mean, I would have broken that down.
Yeah.
It would have been fun.
Yeah, it's really cool. I saw one of your pieces on Oreos, right? In Asia. I loved it.
It's shocking. I mean, like, I'm obsessed with Oreos. I'm obsessed. But anyway, that's a whole different thing. We are, oh my goodness, it's November. I mean, I'm sorry, it's October. Oh my God, this is where I look. It's October. It's October, and we are a couple months away from a new year. At the start of the year, we were like, woohoo, brand new decade. Everyone had a plan. Everyone had like, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to build out. In March, we started like trickling and like, God, there's a little buzz. I mean, I was in Mexico. So in January, I was in Morocco. February, I was home. I'm working in Mexico in March, and everyone's like, what's going on with the toilet paper in the States? I'm like, oh, I know. Like we over exaggerate everything. But then in Europe, things start closing down, like in March. And then it starts rippling, and it's like now the entire country, before April, the entire country and the entire world is shutting down. What was it like for you, and what did it do to your company?
So, quite honestly, we have been very lucky. We had virtual internships started in 2018 with, albeit a little rough around the edges, we had a program, we had a service that was COVID proof. So, you know, that was there, which is great. I have to do a huge shout out to all my team members at Virtual Internships, but like particularly my co-founder, Dan, and our COO, Jason. They'd actually both just quite recently relocated to Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam at that point. And Vietnam has handled this amazingly. I mean, they've literally had like, I don't know, a handful of cases, and it's completely, they are back to life as normal. I have seen pictures of them going to a colleague's 300-person wedding. I'm like, what? You know, every time I meet with my mum now, I take a picture, you know, just because it's so rare. It's like, okay. So they were able to pivot massively quickly and did an incredible job. And I have to say, the biggest thing here was that schools closed, and I have 4.5-year-old twins who were a little bit distracting. But
what? It's so shocking. 4-year-old twins. Wow.
Yeah, so that was a bit challenging, I will be really honest, that March, but you know, we pivoted very quickly, and we had a lot of universities come and say, hey, we had these students who wanted to go to do this, and their internships being canceled, and these people can't travel. What can you do? And you know, we basically had to massively ramp up our capacity and change some of our systems to deal with sudden inflow, but we did it.
So you have two colleagues that are in like overseas, like other side of the world. You're here. How big is the team, and how were you able to? It was great because it was already a virtual program, but you guys were together working. You were seeing each other. You're engaging. How was it that you were able to keep that balance going and making sure that everyone was okay during that time?
Yeah, sure. So we have 36-ish team globally, but that is including the previous, you know, on the ground programs, which at the current time, you know, still pretty much mothballed. So we had some, you know, basically amazing levels of flexibility and engagement from those team members who basically all agreed, got on board with this massive pivot. And, you know, used to talk about how exciting it'd be to arrive in Tokyo and go to the food market and stay in these accommodations. And at day two, like, okay, this is a virtual internship program. It's so exciting that you can do all of this remotely and you don't even have to get on the plane. It's like, you know, we asked a lot of a lot of people pretty much overnight, and everyone stepped up. It's been really amazing. You know, and like, I guess there have been many other industries that have just been hit a lot worse, and companies specifically. So it was good that we had something going on. But yeah, it's been an incredible challenge, but something that has really made us excited to pull through and grow. And the company is now in a super exciting position. Actually, we're just doing some very exciting plans for the coming couple of years.
Well, this is a great little a little bridge to the next question is, what did you add to the company that you would have added eventually, or you would have never thought about adding, that you're like, we have time. We have all this time to build up this thing. So what was it, something that you've added to the company that you're like, thank God this happened because it gave us that foreseeable moment to see that this is needed? Or what was something that someone had a situation and you're like, you know what, maybe we should add this, and it's gone gangbusters?
I mean, it's almost embarrassing to admit it. We did not used to have any kind of regular whole company meetings.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, I mean, we used to have 1 week a year where majority of the team, you know, depending on how many plane tickets we could afford, would meet up in one office.
What? That's like, I was. What?
So we have colleagues in the US, in Australia, New Zealand, Vietnam, China. And so getting everybody together was a once a year thing, right? Before COVID. And from April, one of my amazing colleagues just, you know, got us all into shape and said, this is our global monthly Zoom call. Yes, it's going to be 1 a.m. for our dear colleague in New Zealand, but everybody else is going to make it work. And we're going to do, you know, a few team building exercises, and then we're going to actually talk about the business for a couple of hours and make sure everybody is on board and excited and knows where the direction they're going. And like I said, it's crazy to think that we didn't do that before. We used to say, okay, well, you're part of the team in this country. You obviously have colleagues in the office. You just meet with them and somebody will tell you what you're doing and whether you're doing a good job. And so the first couple of times, you know, when we actually had a Zoom screen full of people, and we thought, these are our team members, and, you know, we're relying on them and they're relying on us, and we can do this. It was pretty exciting.
But wasn't it the most, I mean, it's exciting to sit there and watch, but didn't you ever get the little buzz from other people saying, like, they're concerned, or they don't know the direction, they don't know your vision, because they look towards you, and if they're getting it third or fourth or sixth iteration, isn't there a disconnect from that person that is, maybe it's your tech person that you don't have that relationship with, but they know of you, they know they're working for your company. Didn't you ever feel that, or were you just so busy and you're running so hard that you just never thought about it?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. But, you know, we had still pretty good communication flows through the business, and, you know, reports and strategic documents and plans and targets. But I guess it was that actually getting everyone together at the same time, you know, didn't really happen. It was more like this department or that department, etc. So, yeah.
So now you know. Oh my God, I love that you've added it.
Yep.
I'm gonna lie to you, still surprising to me, but I'm happy that you added that. You were already virtual. Now the world is virtual. You went through all the bumps and bruises of what it means to be virtual and how to do it extremely well. A lot of companies are in that moment right now. They're just like, they're still experiencing bumps and bruises months later. Where do you think this goes now? Because we went from everyone having their offices to open space to now we're working from home, and hey, Wayfairs or the Squares, those companies are saying, you know what, we are not even opening our stores anymore or opening our brick and mortars. We're going to let you work from home, period, because we didn't know that you could be so, I mean, people are so productive. Like, yeah. So where do you feel that the virtual essence of working will go? Because we don't know when the pandemic ends. We don't know what's going to happen. But once, let's just say in a perfect world, it gets better, there's a vaccination, we go back to our new normal. Where do you think this land of virtual will go for you? Or not for you, but for everyone?
Yeah, I don't think we're going back. I don't think we're going back to what normal used to look like. I think people have had to embrace remote working, and people are finding plenty of positives. There are certainly some jobs and roles where it is tougher, and where I think there's always going to be a hands-on element. But I think that the majority of employers will end up embracing as many of the good parts of remote work as they possibly can. And employees will ask for that. You know, they won't be willing to go back to 5 days a week commuting for 2 hours. I mean, I don't know what it's like in Chicago, but like for London, you know, people regularly used to commute an hour each way or an hour and a half each way. And that's dead time. So people may go into the office for something a bit more special, you know, creativity or some meetings or maybe some offsites. So I think it's just been a catalyst. It's really just kind of either speeded things up, or maybe not even, you couldn't even say speeded things up. It's just provided a stop and a refresh. You know, society had been built with big offices and with people commuting and all these things. And unless you have some pressure to take those things away, people just continue. This is the status quo. I'm a fresh graduate and I go into the office at 9 a.m. on Monday, having commuted for an hour and a half to get there. And now you take that away and you just force everybody to think, well, what could we do? And in general, I think there will be more positives longer term, but I don't deny that certain industries that were kind of bedrocks will probably have big, long-standing problems. You know, we'll just be forced to change their value proposition.
I feel that that's one of the things where I try to explain to people so often, where I think that one of the groups of people that had a tough time was the micromanagers, the individuals that were hovering over someone, and that person that was like so stressed out at work. And now that person that was so stressed out, I'm not stressed out because I don't have to rush home for daycare. I don't have to, like, I'm a single parent, or like my spouse is like a consultant and they're traveling all over the place. where people are now having a balance where I can be on a Zoom call, I can get my work done, I can do the laundry, I can have the meal done. And yeah, that's right. My kid is here doing homework. It's a little distracting, but now we have a rhythm going, which is really good. And a lot of those higher ups are realizing, why didn't we do this before?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why didn't we do this before? So it's really interesting how it's being played out. Obviously, there's going to be always companies that have to have a person touching a big, huge machine. You have to be in a location. But for the most part, those regular companies, we're realizing 10 years ago when the world imploded last time, we didn't have the Zooms. We didn't have all this technology to run our businesses. So it would have been a little bit more challenging. This time around, easy peasy. And it wouldn't happen to the next time. And something's going to happen the next time. We'll be even more ready to go. So I think that's like really amazing how this world is really, look, you're right. We're not going to go back to the normal without a doubt.
Yeah.
I'm going to change a little bit to the question of, you are an entrepreneur. You've always been an innovator. You've always been, a risk taker, clearly. You could have you could have stayed the route of the regular job. You chose to be an entrepreneur and an innovator, and you have colleagues that are the same sort of people. They're not risk avert. Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're risk takers.
They have a high risk tolerance.
Yes, very much so. What would you say, there's a lot of people that are at home working. They're realizing that this job is no longer what they wanted, or it's the job that they never wanted. They're thinking about starting something. What would you say to anyone that is looking or thinking about starting something in this climate that we're in right now?
I think if it's possible, try and balance some security and sense of stability. If you can take your current job part-time while you explore a new option 2 days a week, that's probably the sort of safest thing to do. If that's not an option, then I would still encourage people to go for it, to take the opportunity, but try and do it in a way that's responsible to yourself and your own well-being, as alongside that of any of your family or dependents. I was pretty lucky that when I first started my business, I went from relatively low salary, and I was living in a shared house with pretty low bills. And I think that's one way to enter entrepreneurship. The other is make sure you've saved up enough money and you really have all those business contacts you're going to need to get going really fast, and plan it out. And, to some extent, actually, this second business, Virtual Internships, has been a bit more of that model. We planned, we knew who to tap up for some cash. We've got places faster. So I'd encourage people to be clear about which of those two you're doing. If you're going to do the whole thing organically from your kitchen table, do it, and make sure your outgoings are really low. Everything will take a bit longer than you think. There will be some bumps along the way. But, it's an exciting time to do it. I read an article saying that, a higher percentage of businesses started during depression or during times of economic downturns survive and do well. So if you're looking at the numbers and the trends, now is a good time to do it, I guess.
I always say, and actually I don't just always say, but everyone says, you never want to waste a really great crisis. So we are in a crisis and you don't want to waste that opportunity, because and that's including the interns, if you walk into a situation and someone says, what did you accomplish? Not what you did, but what did you accomplish during 2020? And if you say, I watched Tiger King, or I literally just did nothing, then I'm going to be like, oh my God, I really can't talk to you, because it was 365 days of crazy. And what part of the crazy did you grab onto and do something special out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything is more accessible, right? I don't know about you, but my inbox is flooded with free webinar invites. Most of it turning down, but if you're a student with a little bit of extra time on your hands, you can just sign up to so much exciting learning and get, some really well-known, very, very high value things online for free at the moment. So at the very least, do that, and then turn any kind of other opportunities into a real chance to sort of show your resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, again, it's shocking to me when I hear people still complaining after all this time, still complaining and or not understanding what they could do. They're like, well, I have nothing to do. And I'm like, I don't even care if you just take a walk on the beach and take pictures of the sunrise every single day. Improve your photography skills, like something, anything.
Yeah, constant improvement.
All right, so I have my last question for you. Oh, wait, before my last question, did you marry well? Did you do well? Are you doing okay at the house? How are the twins? Like, what was it like balancing your company and balancing your family at the same exact time?
Yeah, I mean, occasionally my daughter still picks up her hairbrush and looks at me and says, I'm on a very important call. And, so there are probably some deep underlying issues there that are going to come out over the next 20 years. But no, realistically, I mean, I couldn't have done it without amazing team around me who totally understood, and I would take a picture of like my kids making a pretend fort, a meter away from me on the carpet and say, you're lucky you haven't got any noise at the moment, and everybody was understanding. I think it did actually bring out the best in people, human understanding, and everybody was going through it at the same time, but also everybody's situation was different. There are a lot of like single people living alone, and if you tell them they're only allowed out of their house once a day, they're pretty lonely, and they could really do with some FaceTime. And then there are other people who are like, just take my kids away, just reopen the schools and I will be with you 100%. So yeah, it was crazy, but nothing terrible, and we got through it.
I think that was one of the funny things where, like, I mean, whether it's my speeches or whether it's like my clients or whether it's these like the podcast, cats walking on the computer, dogs barking, the UPS delivery, the Amazon delivery. Like I go literally like spouses. Like yesterday was a father, like literally like one of our colleagues back is living at home with his older parents, and literally as we're talking, dad walks in with his underpants on, and I'm like, oh my God, I saw this on TV. I can't believe we experienced it. And I was so mad that I didn't tape it. I'm like, oh my God, it happened in time.
Yeah. Wow.
His eyes were like this, like, oh, for the love of God, please walk away from the shot. And his father just stayed in the shot that much longer. And I'm like, this is making my day.
Wow. You just wish it had been recorded. Oh.
All right. So my last question.
Sure.
If you had a personal and professional ask of anyone that's listening to you today, a personal and professional ask, two, what would be your personal ask and what would be your professional ask of anyone that's listening to you anywhere around this planet of ours?
Okay, so personal ask, I love building my network. So please feel free to have a look at LinkedIn, send me a message. If I can help, if my experience can add some value to anyone's career progression or to them at all, I'd love to, I'm very happy to connect, and I'm very happy to try and add that value. So please feel free to connect. Tell me your story. I'm always interested. And professionally, well, if you are not hosting virtual interns yet, then you should be. And if you're not doing it because you're worried about something, whatever it is, please get in touch, because we've now done in the last few months 1,000+ internships. So we have some experience to draw on, and we can help corporations, small, medium, and large, set up excellent virtual internship programs, which in turn gives back to students and helps them along their journey during a tough time. So that would be my professional ask.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you. I mean, again, I cannot tell you how much I'm so happy that you exist, and I'm so happy that you're doing what you do. Internships are so important. Internships are, I mean, I couldn't, like, I literally was like, we're working on a project with my team, and we literally got my last interns for the last 2 years to be part of this project that we're working on. And it's a super fun little project. But it's so funny how it was like literally, it was like 150 interns over 2 years. And I'm like, how did that happen? Like, how did that happen? Like, because it's just season to season. And these kids are doing great. They're doing great. I'm a tough boss. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a very tough boss. And I don't pay interns but I'm an educator. I'm a former teacher, so I'm an educator. We have lessons, as well as I open up my Rolodex. My LinkedIn is very curated. I don't just collect warm bodies. So in the middle, during our midterm evaluation, they have to go to my LinkedIn. They have to pick 2 people that they want to interview that's from my LinkedIn, because it is that potential job that you may want. So I give you that opportunity to speak to someone at that high level. And it's just amazing how to watch where they go after is like proud mommy time.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it's the combination of the potential number of people you can help and you can influence. And I was actually sitting with one of our investors in the NAFSA conference, about big room, and he said, "How many people do you think are in here?" And I was like, looked around, I was like, maybe 5,000. And he was like, "Well, haven't we sent 10,000 people on our programs?" And it's not until you actually look around, you're like, whoa, okay. And probably a couple of them, changed their industry or had a rubbish time, but the majority have come out of it stronger with more skills. And you suddenly think, okay, that's really exciting. And then, like you say, the individual stories where you have actually managed to introduce someone to someone useful, or you have given them that angle on their skills, it's really exciting. So thank you for sharing, Jodi. And I've like really enjoyed kind of pouring out my
hearing those wonderful stories about you. Well, I always say, like, I do not do business with things. I do business with people. And in order for me to understand why I'm using your product, I need to understand why you're engaging with me as your target audience. And so it's just like, I want to give you guys the opportunity to tell people who you are and where you came from and why you care so much, because I always say, like, we're not Warren Buffett, we're not Oprah Winfrey, we're not Bill Gates, but we're making changes. We're making changes, dramatic changes every single day that people don't know our names. But if it wasn't for us, there wouldn't be someone having that opportunity of you sharing your story, someone being inspired, thinking it's my time to start a company. I go, me and like internships, where I would have never been where I am right now if it wasn't for those internships. So thank you, Edward, just like for everything that you're doing. I mean, it's just so important, and people forget. And I don't want people to fear interns. I want them to embrace them again, because their roles are needed globally. And the best part about that virtual internship, which I've always done a virtual internship, is, I shouldn't say always, like I started like about 4 or 5 years ago. These kids get the opportunity to work with other kids from other places that they would never meet. And that right there, we live on a very small planet. And yes, you may not be able to afford to live in another location, but you can have the opportunity to make a friend of a lifetime through an internship.
Completely agree.
Yeah, so that's great. All right, so wait.
Yeah, that's great.
Wait, I have one more thing. This one's my corny question. I'm gonna leave it with this one. I feel like every other person I meet is an Edward from the UK. How many people are named Edward in the UK? I mean, like, what's that number? It's like, why is it such a popular name?
I'm probably going to have to admit to you that my middle name is William. So
2 names that you hear often.
Yeah, my parents were probably not feeling very inspired when they were picking. I think it's the Kings thing, they're just like, what should we do? We can't think of any good names. I know, call them Charles or call them William. So I was lucky that I got the Edward, which is like a bit less frequently seen than James or Charles or William, I think. But yeah, there are a lot.
There's a lot. Well, I mean, like, I'm Jodi-Tatiana. The Tatiana is a saint name. So being Catholics, most Catholic kids, like, you get the Bible names. So
okay, yeah.
So you get the kings and queens, you get the Bible names. It comes one. But I'm like, why don't I go Edward? I'm just gonna have to ask, because I feel like I meet a lot of Edwards from the UK.
Yeah. I have 4 or 5 friends called Edward. It's a bit weird. Yeah.
just a question. Just like, I'm gonna leave it at that. But
fair enough. Yeah.
Thank you so very much for. You just took a bit of your time, which I love that. You just you shared, yay for sharing, but also just thank you very much for just sharing the story of how you got to where you are, and just to let people know that you're around. I love it.
It's been a real pleasure, Jodi, and your questions have been spot on, and I've really enjoyed it.
So I've said to everyone, where no longer the end of the year, but the start of the new year, I'm going to come back to a lot of people. I'm going to see where you are, what's happening. How has your company added on things, or has it changed? What's it like in your countries that you're dealing with so many different countries. So this is not our last conversation.
Cool. I love that. Yeah, that would be a real pleasure.
Beautiful. Well, have a wonderful, wonderful end of the year. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you too, Jodi. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's explore the great benefits of a virtual internship opportunity. One distinct opportunity is to gain a global network, engaging peers and professionals across the globe, which could help you in future employment and for referral purposes. Virtual internships lets you stand out to employers, as remote working requires high levels of time management and self-discipline. It goes without saying that you'll also improve your resume or CV, as virtual internships allow you to gain professional skills and add project-based work experience to your resume. Through working across the globe, you'll also increase your cross-cultural understanding and enhance your communication and problem-solving ability. Furthermore, being virtual will allow you to gain remote working skills, which is crucial in today's workforce, especially post-COVID. Finally, it lets you explore your future, learning the skills and aptitudes you have, what you like to do, and importantly, what you don't like to do, so that you can take steps to the best career path for you.